let's begin. Tell me about yourself, sir.
Right. I'm a general banker with about close to 28 years of work experience.
Okay.
I started my career in a rural branch of Canara Bank in Andhra Pradesh when I was 18 and a half year old boy. I discontinued my engineering and joined in Canara Bank in a rural branch as a typist cum clerk, TCC, and started my baptism into banking happened in a rural branch. That's how the journey in banking began. And those 3.5 years that I spent in the rural area gave me a very good understanding of three things. One, the context in which the rural branches operate in India. Two, the expectations that people have from a bank that go beyond the transaction. They expect the banker to be much more than being a transaction guy. And most importantly, the difference that individual people, professionals, notwithstanding the institution, can make in the rural context in the same environment, whether it is enabling environment or a constrained environment. It depends on the way we look at the environment. They can bring about wonderful change. And I have seen leaders, my branch managers. One branch manager was fantastic and had all the vision and opportunity to do a meaningful job. That gentleman went and another gentleman came, and his only motive was, how soon can I complete this rural posting and go back? So this glass of half empty, half full, is something that I saw. So that's how, my baptism into banking happened. And 1995, I moved to Hyderabad to pursue my aspirations into civil services. I completed my graduation through correspondence by taking history, public administration, and sociology as my subjects with an eye on civil services. So 95, I moved to Hyderabad and was part of circle office in Canara Bank. So it was 10 to 5 job and 5 to 10 IAS coaching, 10 to 3 preparation for IAS, and 3 to 8 sleep, and then 10 to 5 job. That's how life was for about 1.5 years. And that was the time that I also adjusted to a city life from a rural background. And 96, after clearing the RBI grade A exam, after clearing probationary officers exam, and so on and so forth, 96, I left my government job in Canara Bank and joined ICICI Bank in Hyderabad. That's how I got into private sector banking. Within ICICI, I was again in the front office. I was a cashier and then moved to marketing department, and that's how I understood marketing. Where I used to go on my two-wheeler with a bag and then do cold calls. Nobody knew private banking, nobody knew ICICI Bank, and nobody knew that bankers can actually come and canvas business. All those days, I'm talking of 96 when private banks were new. But then 98, I got my first promotion. 2000, I became a branch manager. I opened the Jubilee Hills branch of Hyderabad, and then I also, became the branch manager of Guntur in 2001 after the merger of Bank of Madurai into ICICI Bank, and that's when I got a fantastic exposure into chili, turmeric, tobacco value chains, storage, cold stores, and the warehouse receipt financing, all of that. At that point in time, it did not make much of a sense. But then how each of the dots got connected when Samanati came in, I will complete that. But then that is the time that I also completed my MBA from Symbiosis from distance mode. So my graduation, BA distance, MBA distance, I thought I should do something full time, is when I took my GMAT and applied both for ISB and Asian Institute of Management, because my home ministry gave me only 1 year of permission to go out, study, and come back. So ISB was offering 1 year course, and then Asian Institute of Management. My GMAT score was not good enough for ISB at that point in time. I got about 670 or so, which was not good enough. And then I cracked the management aptitude test of AIM, Asian Institute of Management. I wrote the exam in Loyola College. I came from Hyderabad to Chennai to write the exam and went back. Then that 1 year in AIM was the only full-time education that I had. And that changed the landscape of my understanding of how leadership gets defined with the ability to handle larger roles. And when I came back I was on sabbatical. When I came back to ICICI Bank, the bank was kind enough to let me into a group called Rural Micro Banking and Agribusiness Group. And I requested for it because the last module in AIM was Inspirational Leadership module, and in which Dr. Muhammad Yunus's Banker to the Poor was also there. And I was very, very impressed with how he has built a sector from the same rural context that my baptism into banking happened. I could relate to what he did in Chittagong to what I experienced or got exposed to my very first posting in a remote village near Kurnool in Andhra Pradesh. Context was the same, people were the same. So I thought, why not I apply my exposure in rural banking to what I am doing henceforth and add value to a deeper call. But for many people who have helped me in my both professionally and personally, I would have been one of the microfinance clients myself. That's the background that I come from. So I thought it's my bounden duty to do something meaningful and create impact in those areas. So 2005, 2007, I was head of microfinance institution development team in ICICI Bank, building newer models and newer structures in microfinance. In 2007, the bank decided to set up IFMR Trust, and a couple of us who were working with a gentleman by name Dr. Nachiket Moore. I was working with him as part of my role in the microfinance development team very closely. So we were sent on deputation to Chennai from Bombay to set up IFMR Trust, and I became the founder trustee of IFMR Trust, and I was given the responsibility of setting up a local full service financial institution model called KGFS, Kshetriya Gramin Financial Services, which resemble RRBs or small finance banks now. It is a hybrid of both. And I was the group CEO for that, taking care of IFMR Rural Finance and rural channels for a long time. And then we set up about 6 such units, 4 of them in Tamil Nadu, 1 in Uttarakhand in the hills of Garhwal, and 1 in Ganjam. The idea was, can we isolate the genetic code of this model and apply it in diverse market geographies? They are diverse. One hills, one very, very underdeveloped, and one economy where like Tamil Nadu, where participation of women is much more prevalent in agriculture and much more well irrigated and prosperous as compared to Ganjam, where we started in Orissa. 2007 to 2014, I was a group CEO for that, and also set up this entity. 2014, I thought I would take a break from there, and I was suggested why not look at agriculture, because in KGFS, we had a fantastic way to understand individual households from their assets, liabilities, income, expenditure, and long-term goals. But then over a period of engaging with the remote rural households, in other words, farmer families, we started realizing that while an in-depth understanding of the household is important, but these households are not operating in vacuum. They are operating in a geography which is dependent on 2 or 3 major economic activities. For example, if you take Kumbakonam, that paddy is an important economic activity. You take your Pollachi and Kambam area, a certain crops that are relevant, so on and so forth. So each geography was dependent on 2 or 3 major economic activities, and the cash flows of the households had a direct correlation to how that economic activity behaves. So notwithstanding the understanding of the household, if we don't address the vulnerabilities of those economic activities, the households willy-nilly are vulnerable.
Yes.
That is what led us to take up this value chain finance approach in Samunnati. Now, Samunnati is an entrepreneurial pursuit focused entirely on agriculture, building a value chain finance proposition. I set up Samunnati by taking a loan on my house in Hyderabad and my PF money because I wanted everything to be focused entirely on agriculture and nothing else. And then, building a value chain finance proposition with 2 hypotheses. One, work with the demand side of the value chain, remove the working capital constraint, make them operate at a higher equilibrium. Because they are operating at a higher equilibrium, they will be looking at new lines of supply. work with the supply side of the value chain, which represented the farmers and farmer collectives like FPOs, and prepare them to be able to cater to the additional demand in the value chain.
Wonderful, sir.
So the vision for Samunnati is how do we make markets or making markets work for smallholder farmers. That is the reason why we exist as an organization.
Very
So,
good, sir.
I gave a elaborate introduction about myself and the activity that I am in.
Wonderful, wonderful. Nice, nice. I was economics student in graduation. I continue to be an economics student. Wherever if you see economy, I'll be there. I'll just stand and listen what the other person says.
Oh, nice.
One of the paper is Indian economic development.
Right.
And I always, there is always a section about the farm agricultural credit, all this Agricultural Finance Corporation of India, regional rural banks, all these things and all we read. And I always see the farmers will never be happy. I always used to tell my farming friends, you guys will never be happy, you'll always cry. Either there is more rain or no rain.
Correct.
If everything is okay, the farm hands are not coming. If they are coming, the wages are very high. Everything is over, then finally the price is low. Either the yield is low or the price is low.
Correct.
And the farming was better few years ago, not now. These are all the general 7 or 8 conditions.
Correct.
Things they used to say.
Correct.
Now, in your case, to me, you are a demonstration how I see you. I've been closely watching you for about 3 to 5 years, I think, after the Samunnati was born. 2014-15 was started. Now it's about nearly 5-6 years. If you are doing well, then agriculture is doing well. Correct?
Correct.
That means agri is not a losing proposition.
I agree with you.
If done right, it is definitely it's a business. Don't look at it as a way of sustenance. If you look at it as a agri-business. Now, here in this context, our farmers may lack or are lacking business skills rather than the technical skills, because technical skills are given, it has been given from generations together, it is coming. The business skills are lacking. This is what Samunnati is bridging apart from the finances. Am I right, sir?
It's a long question, but then the answer lies in all the dimensions that you mentioned. First and foremost, agriculture is a viable proposition if
lots of
done
ifs.
properly.
Okay.
What we have realized over this journey of, I have spent about 20 years in the rural and agri space, is most of the offerings to a farmer and the agriculturist have been from the perspective of what is convenient for the provider and not for the receiver. The farmer has always been at the receiving end and trying to cope up with whatever is available to him or her and trying to adjust and conduct his or her life, thinking that this is what I get, why don't I mold my engagement to suit what is available. Take, for example, crop loan. Crop loan usually is a bullet disbursement and bullet repayment, right?
Right.
Whereas the activity called cultivation, for which crop loan is given, that crop is not bullet investment and bullet harvest. You make investment, harvest.
Correct.
So the ideal way to match the requirement to the disbursement or disbursement schedule is disburse, repay. Whereas since the loans are shorter loans and smaller loans, the cost of delivering that becomes expensive to the provider, and hence they get into a bullet disbursement. Now the danger of that is the activity might stop. There could be a calamity. or they might use that money for another pressing need, and then compromise on 1 or 2 steps in farming. All of that resulting in finally the harvest. And if there is no harvest, then their ability to repay becomes difficult. Second, the definition of farmer. The one who owns land is not the farmer.
Okay.
The one who does farming is the farmer.
Correct. Agree.
Majority of them are also sharecroppers and tenant farmers.
Yes.
Leasehold farming is prevalent in India.
Yeah.
Oral lease. Okay. How do you define your formal credit flow to all of this? And in my view, one of the principal reasons why our land holding is becoming fragmented by generation is this definition of farmer being, the one who owns the land rather than the one who does farming. If my father has 9 acres of land and we are 3 brothers and I have 3 sons, in 2 generations, 9 acres would become 1 acre.
Correct. Yes.
Right? So it's a combination of all of this. Where we see hope or where we see how to engage is bringing the power of aggregation, which was there in cooperatives earlier, which was there in societies. Amul is a fantastic example of the power of aggregation. All of us in India are aware of. So these FPOs that are there now as vehicles, are the best, in our view, represent the finest potential to aggregate the farmers into lots that would help them have better bargaining power in terms of their products and services. And a member in FPO need not necessarily be the owner of a land. The one who farmer producer organization, the one who produces can be the member. So we've designed a structure called AMLA approach, aggregation, market linkage, and advisory services. So the power of aggregation through FPO, this power of aggregation is meaningful only when market linkages happen.
Correct.
And for market linkages to happen, whether it is on the input side of purchases or output side of post-harvest sale, you need to have access to working capital.
Right.
So our finance is more an enabler, more a means than an end. And once the aggregation market linkages are done, is when we can bring in productivity enhancement measures like advisory services. The AMLA stands for that, aggregation, market linkage, and advisory services. So we at Sammunnati are looking at intervening holistically in an integrated manner, rather than saying these are the services that I give, you figure out how you have to cope up with that. So working with the sole understanding of how do we make this activity for the farmer better, the starting point is important. And then building everything around that makes the difference.
That means your financial engagement is not with the individual farmers. It is with the FPOs.
Both with the FPO as well as individual farmers. With the FPO for the aggregated demand.
Yeah.
With the individual farmer where required for them. For example, if they want to buy a cow or a buffalo.
Okay.
Then it is an individual farmer. Right? If they want to buy, inputs from the input shop of the FPO.
Yes. Yeah.
Then it is individual farmer. But even then, the touch point for us is a FPO.
Yeah, agree.
We don't engage with individual farmers on a standalone basis having a branch. No.
Now, Prime Minister's scheme, he has given a statement. By 2022, the farmers' income will be doubled.
Correct.
One thing, is it possible? If it is possible, does Sammunnati see anywhere a role in it for it?
It is certainly possible.
Okay.
Right? Honorable Prime Minister's aspiration is to double the farmer's income.
Right.
You can certainly do that.
Okay.
And we also see a lot of things coming together to be able to do it. I don't know about the time frame to achieve it, but then if you see the kind of enablers that have been coming in a phased manner and suddenly accelerated after the COVID, all augur well for agriculture. And it is not far away for that aspiration to be fulfilled. It's possible. For that, many forces have to come together. We have to work together to be able to do that. It is not impossible. Very much possible.
Very much possible.
Because there are several metrics. The amount of processing that we do at the harvest site, at the site of harvest, is abysmally low. The level of processing we do is very low. Even first level of processing at a field level has the fillip of 15 to 20% increase on what you can, what you can demand as your, as the price. If you just take paddy as an example, selling it soon after harvest or selling it after 2 months has a difference in terms of 15 to 20% gain.
Yes.
You need to have the holding power to do it. So the challenge in farming is there is no one size fits all.
Yeah.
You don't have one magic wand. You have to contextualize to each crop separately, and that's where most of us have to play a role in it.
Yeah. Now you said selling immediately after farming, after 2 months. This is where people like us come in. I'm a logistics man. For logistics, warehousing is important.
Right.
Assuming that after 2 months, he is not holding it, he is putting in a warehouse.
Correct.
No. Paddy is okay. I mean, it does not require that much of a big warehousing, I should say, the requirement. Whereas for fruits, it makes a big difference. For vegetables, it makes a big, particularly cold chamber.
Correct.
You know? That is now been given the status of infrastructure also.
Correct.
Does Samunnati has a role in that?
Absolutely. Samunnati looks at playing a role in pre-harvest, during harvest, post-harvest, processing, and catalytic infrastructure.
Okay.
For us, these are all tools.
Right.
Anything that can make markets work for smallholder farmers is something that we would be happy to do.
Wonderful. Right.
If it is just grading and sorting, fine. If it is just removing foreign particles and selling, fine. If it is putting in cold storage and selling, fine. But most of the fruits also are not meant to be kept in cold storage. Maybe they are meant for pulping.
Pulping, yes.
So you may want to look at how do you make it into a pulp and store. The significant constraint that we have to remove for farmer to be able to do that is, can farmer generate a little bit of liquidity for the next season without having to sell his produce?
Yes, a sustain.
Then you are removing the interdependency between selling it at the current price come what may, because I need for next season, to selling when it is right time to sell, but I will continue with my next season.
Wonderful. Right.
You have to decouple that.
That means this is, we used to talk about in our youth, corporatization is the only way.
Okay.
That's what we used to think. But judging from your model, corporatization, meaning big companies like Reliance taking over 6,000 acres of land and cultivating, that is not the solution. This is a bottoms-up approach.
I would say cooperation is the only way.
Yes, cooperation. Country like India,
Correct.
Cooperation is the only way, and people will not come out in the streets and say, "Oh, my land has been taken over. He has a hold over land, sentiments over land." You know what happened when the lands were taken away for SEZ development, special economic zone development? Everybody started agitating. So that will not happen in this case because farmer still owns, he still continues to be owner. Only thing is, he is part of a process.
Correct.
And of the whole aggregation model.
Correct.
Correct.
Correct. And in that process, he is also standing to gain benefited.
And
so aligning the incentive is an important dimension.
Correct. And all those the cooperative models, the bureaucratic problems, the politician coming in, they are not there. Any cooperative model, you'll have a politician sitting generally, good or bad, we don't know.
This is the execution structure.
Okay.
One good thing about the FPO structure and the FPC is these are companies registered under Indian Companies Act.
Okay.
You know, regulated by MCA, Ministry of Company Affairs.
That means they are a Section 25 company or a regular?
No, there is a separate category called farmer producer companies.
Oh.
It is an amendment to Indian Companies Act.
Wonderful, nice.
They are supposed to have the same set of governance standards that any other company, private or public, is expected to have, needs to have.
Oh, nice.
And we have learned as a country, a lot through the cooperative movement.
Right.
And the sheer size of this country, there are about 50,000 to 60,000 wonderfully functioning primary agricultural cooperative societies among the 2 lakh and odd packs that this country has.
Yes.
So there are bright spots. We can look at those bright spots and proliferate those success stories to make it happen.
See, this is how it's being projected. Meaning, India is the only country where the agriculture can go on in all 4 seasons. At least in one place, it can go on.
Correct.
There are nothing like a free frozen season and all that stuff. And given the right framework, India can be the basket of fruits and vegetables of the world.
Right.
If somehow we are able to crack that code and we look at the world as our market, you not only get a good remuneration for your farmer, but also you earn a precious foreign exchange in between. And supplying food is having like a bargaining power in you.
In India has all the potential to do all of that. We are the largest producers and consumers of many agri commodities. But where, again, we need to pay attention when we look at overseas markets is the quality parameter, the residues, how we do farming. Most of our farmers would not know using what pesticide or a fertilizer would result in what residue. And when testing is done, maybe they don't qualify. They don't know that. They will only go and say, hey, this is the problem, so what do I do? Okay. So as part of advisory services, we have to bring in saying, hey, if it is for an export market, these are the standards that you need to comply. And for you to comply these standards, these are the non-negotiables that you need to be careful about. Use only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't definitely use A, B, C, D, E. And these are the certification agencies.
Okay.
Be in touch with them in terms of looking at what it is. And entities like yours can actually translate the requirements of the overseas buyers to the FPO who are the sellers.
Right.
And bridge that knowledge gap. It's not the gap in competency.
Okay.
It is a gap in knowledge. If we make them aware that your act will yield to this, they will certainly be happy to comply with the requirements. It's about creating awareness. What in the microfinance world is referred to as financial literacy. Here it is about quality literacy.
Now the time is up. And last question.
No, I have just moved my other meeting few more minutes, so feel free. No problem.
You are situated all across India, is it?
Correct. We are in about 20 states now.
I see. So for anyone to reach you, with either an individual large farmer or individual farmer or an FPO,
right.
How does it happen?
We have regional offices. We have about 30 offices. Most of the FPOs are federated into the following structures.
Okay.
There are resource institutions which have promoted them, and most of the resource institutions know Samunnati.
Right.
There are federations of FPOs. They know Samunnati.
Okay.
There are foundations, the CSR foundations, which have set up FPOs. We proactively go to them. And some of the FPOs are, fallout of many. There are technical service providers who also promote FPOs. So we work with those entities.
Okay.
And the FPO world now knows Samunnati, thanks to the awareness that we have created. They know Samunnati.
All right, sir. Very nice. Thank you very much. So really wonderful, because I know Anil as somebody else, or Anil as in our Ramchandra Mission circles, but I didn't know the another professional side of Anil. Not only that, the agri-finance section, now it is looking up. I'm beginning to see, I never thought that this will happen in India, because I always used to have, excepting perhaps after Swaminathan, not a big thing, but there are things, bright spots happening.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Namaste.